Hey everyone, I am using my old standby trick of using a stack of books for a tripod holder because I don't know where my kids put mine. Isn't that kind of all where we are right now in the third week of quarantine? Even though I am a regular homeschooler, this is not our normal routine anything. So if you're feeling like I can never homeschool, this is horrible. This is not homeschooling. This is something else. Do what you can. So I thought today it would be really fun to talk about the things that I've kind of started doing since quarantine and that I want to continue. I've talked about in previous videos about how I'm trying to imagine this, as Glennon Doyle would say, as a cocoon time, where we're kind of reimagining what the other side of this looks like. And while I have a lot of grace for absolutely anybody who is in this situation and not thriving, none of us are thriving, not learning a new language, not doing all the new things. This is not time to do all of the new things. However, I do think it is a time for self-care. And I want to kind of distinguish the difference between self-care and self-comfort. I heard this a couple of years ago, maybe, on Sorta Awesome podcast, which I really love. Laura Tremaine, who has another spin-off podcast right now called 10 Things I Have to Tell You, talked about the difference between self-care and self-comfort. Self-care is one of those things where you're actually taking care of yourself. You're healing yourself, you're giving yourself energy, you are doing things that in the long run will be good for you. Self-comfort is when we binge drink or binge watch or just mindlessly kind of numb ourselves, which is fine sometimes. Sometimes you really do just need to do those things, I suppose. Maybe not binge drink, but but if you confuse self-care and self-comfort all the time for just self-comfort, you're missing out on a huge, huge thing. Self-comfort things will last for a little bit. Self-care things actually add to our long-term benefit. I kind of think about it. I told somebody who's in their early 20s that becoming a grown-up is like learning to be your own parent. I used to think when I was a kid that being a grown-up meant that you could do whatever you wanted. It's funny. And then I thought, well, why am I having such a hard time making good choices? I realized being a grown-up sometimes just means being your own mom or your own dad, saying, you know what, Maria, that's not actually the best choice for you. So these are some self-care items that I have been doing and instituting in our lives that I think I will continue post whatever time this is right now. Who knows what day it is? I don't know. First up, regular phone calls with friends. I remember, I'm that old, I remember when texting first became a thing and I was like, why would we text to people what we could just call and hear their voice? I don't understand. And then I just switched mostly to texting, as so many of us did. And I know especially younger adults who've mostly done texting their whole lives, the idea of an audio phone call is a little unnerving. I will say, however, there is something huge about hearing somebody's voice and getting to talk back and forth in real time. I have some friends who are going through some super hard stuff on top of the pandemic, some divorces, job losses, etc. And so regular phone calls has been a really nice thing to just get a back and forth human contact point where we don't have as many choices to do that anymore. Second up, related but not quite the same, family Zoom calls. I have a brother and a sister, and then they each have, spouses and kids, and then there's my parents. My husband has a brother, and then he just got married last year. So that side's a little bit smaller, less chaotic because we don't have the kids except for ours on that side. But it was really fun because we are all so spread out to do some family Zoom calls where we all get on at the same time. My husband even managed to split the phone call so the cousins got to talk and the grown-ups got to honestly just have quiet for like 2 minutes without cousins and kids. And it was really nice. I think we might do it with Pictionary, with charades, several other things where we're just doing kind of some fun extended family touch points throughout the week. My parents started the Uno photo game where they post a picture and then you find one thing that has to do with the next picture, and you keep going and going. So just family Zoom calls. Another thing that I've done is start seeds ahead of time of the garden. Normally my mother-in-law does all of our gardening. I know I'm very lucky. It was her stipulation when they bought a condo near us that they couldn't garden in, that she could garden in our yard instead. So this has been really hard for her to not come over and just spend hours and hours working on our garden. And I miss it too. But it means that I have been responsible for doing our yard work. I've started seeds, which I've always thought about doing. I think one year I did, but I did like a little grow light and it was in the garage and it didn't go well. And then I just thought, oh well, and I went and bought new plants instead. So I've started seeds, and that's been really cool to kind of watch them actually thrive. And then now I just have to figure out how to get them outside and not die. We'll see how that goes. But just seeing some new life, trying to do some nice things for our home environment where we're stuck. Next thing up, looking up YouTube tutorials that I can DIY. In January, I made the mistake. This might seem weird for those of you who've never done this. I was cleaning the lint trap in our dryer, and there was a whole bunch of stuff above the dryer, and I moved the lint trap and a plastic fork fell into our dryer. Now, young 20s Maria would say something like, oh, that's probably not the best, but it'll probably be okay. Let's see how it goes. And then maybe I would have had a plastic fire start in my dryer, and I would have had to replace the dryer, or maybe even the house, depending how bad the house fire got. But mid-late 30s Maria said, you know what? I think I probably should get that plastic fork out of the really hot dryer before I run it. And so I looked up on YouTube how to take apart my dryer, and then how to put it back, and then I put it back together, and I got the fork out, just sounds funny, but I was so impressed with myself that I was able to do a simple fix. I've done other things like, unclog drain stuff. So I'm starting to kind of get a little bit more confidence. That's what YouTube's for, right? Getting confidence to do things that you never imagined possible. So like today I looked up some paper flower tutorials because I've been meaning to learn how to do that for a long time. I don't really want to purchase a book right now to learn how to do it. And I thought, you know what? A YouTube video would be free and available, and I can maybe get a new hobby and make some really beautiful flowers for when the ones outside don't go as well as I like. So find something that you've been wanting to do on YouTube and then try it. I also plan to use power tools and build some wood planters in our backyard. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. Next up, make do and only go to the store when necessary. We are very fortunate in that we do have steady income right now, and anticipate having steady income. We have been, we have the emergency savings that we've worked on, and that's also been a really lucky thing for us to be able to do. But I think it's very easy oftentimes to just say like, oh, this didn't work out, I need to go get something new, or oh, I just want one thing at the store, and then you go and get like 30 things. This has been a really cool no buying experiment. I did that a couple years ago, but this is like a whole new level of no buying. Just looking at and like, well, okay, yeah, it's weird to have this for dinner with this, but that's what's available, and let's just do it. Next up, buy more local and smaller businesses. We've had an Amazon Prime membership for probably a decade at least, and there are benefits to that for us. However, I've been very frustrated with how they've treated a lot of their employees over the years, and this was just one more excuse to say, you know what, I'm going to look at more local options. I'm going to look for smaller business options that I can support whenever I can, and opting not to get the easy Amazon purchase all the time. I'm not saying I don't do it at all, but just trying to look out. We have a local distillery, which is doing free hand sanitizer to everybody in the community, and so I've been able to support buying their bourbon and liquors because I'm really proud of what they're doing for our community. There are other small business artists that do online classes that I'm planning on getting for a friend's kid for their birthday coming up. Just looking for ways you can support small businesses that are having a hard time. Podcasts are not being listened to as they used to be because of commute times not being there or people always being around. So I've, started doing Patreon for a couple of the podcasts that I really listen to. If you can't afford Patreon right now, write a review for those people. Still listen to them even though you might not be listening, because they're losing ad revenue, they're losing sponsorship and people listening. Tell people about podcasts. Those are little things you can do that cost little or no money to support everybody who's still trying to keep going with all of this around us. So that's another thing I've been doing. Limit news to once a day. Obviously it's election year, and so prior to all of this, all of the election coverage was just kept coming and coming and coming. And over the last few years, it has been exhausting for me to see as much news as I've seen. It feels like it keeps changing every day, and not even all important news. So when the pandemic hit and I was seeing more news that was really depressing, it was just too much for my soul to take. And so I've limited it to once a day. I will listen to all my news sources. And I've also tried to intersperse good things. John Krasinski, if you haven't seen, started up, he played Jim Halpert on The Office. He started up SGN, which is Some Good News Network on YouTube. If you haven't seen the viral videos going around, they're pretty great. But he's just been trying to find good news and post it online in a really positive way. So try and balance the news content you hit, or at least limit the news content. And I think I will continue that post-pandemic, because honestly, I don't need to hear the news more than once a day. It's just too much. Spoiling friends. This has been one of my favorite things to do. I have a few friends, like I said, who've been going through really rough times. So I did Better World Books gift cards. I sent a couple things to houses. I've been, again, trying to patronize their businesses whenever I can, checking in with them, sending letters or postcards or funny memes. These are times we really need to spoil our friends and lavish people with love and grace and forgiveness for anything, because it's a doozy. And if you're lucky enough to have a friend in your life, tell them, because the more we can get, the better off we're going to be. Next up, limit work. I know that sounds a weird thing to say, but recognize that now is not necessarily the time to be overproductive. And that's okay. Play. Take the time to do Dollhouse, or to make the cookies, or to fidget on a piano with your kid. Play a board game. Really, really think about what you're going to want to remember, what you want your family and friends to remember about this time, and then try and make it happen. I found a couple of lists online of different fun things to do, and I'll be looking through those things. But it is fun to do new things and new habits, new everything, because we're all looking for some novelty at this point. I'm just trying my best not to buzz cut my hair in a fit of boredom. But remember to play, take it easy, get some outside time. These are things that are going to be what carry us through, and hopefully what sustain us long after this pandemic's over. So I will talk to you all later. I love you. I hope that you're getting people in your life. I hope you are getting love and light and beauty, because we really need it right now. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. Also, I hit 900 subscribers. That was awesome. So thank you for that. If you like this, please share, subscribe, whatever. I never say that, but it was nice hitting 900 subscribers. That's a big deal. So after 5 years of mostly doing this. So I will talk to you later. Bye.